We'll be back in session. Recess is over, and we got technological glitches resolved. So we'll go to item number 7.2, the operating budget.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have the 2019-2021 operating budget to present. Do you just want to put on the PowerPoint? Yep, that one there.
It's part of the same PowerPoint.
Okay. Right. Go ahead then.
So the 2019 operating budget is a total of $19.6 million. Couple highlights here. This includes a 0% increase in the residential municipal taxes for 2019 and 2020, followed by a 4% increase in the non-residential municipal taxes for 2019. With a 4% increase in non-residential taxes, we believe we still have a very competitive non-residential mill rate. Following the direction you received from council, a recreation levy of $10 per month for a total of $120 per year will be added to the tax notices of each residential property in Coaldale. Vacant residential lots and non-residential properties are exempt from this. These funds will be used to service the payment of a $10 million debenture being taken out to fund a multi-use recreational facility that will be co-constructed with a new high school in Coaldale. This recreational facility will be further discussed in the capital budget. So the $19.6 million, where does that go? 21% is to protective services, so fire, police, and bylaw. 21% relates to utilities, water, sewer, solid waste. 19% relates to parks, recreation, facilities, culture, and community services. 12% relates to corporate services and council. And 10% relates to planning and development. So how is the budget being funded? 42% of the budget is funded through property taxes, 23% through utility rates, 6% through land sales, 6% through operating reserves, and 23% through various other sources. These include investment income, franchise fees, grants, fines and penalties, and the recreation levy. This slide here summarizes the total tax support requested for each department. I'll just go through these individually. The decrease in tax support required for council and the increase for administration compared to the 2018 budget is simply due to an allocation of wages and salaries within these functions. As a result of combining these two together, the net increase is 3.5% with no substantial increase in spending. The change in the salary allocation is just for ease of tracking and budgeting for the internal departments. The increase in infrastructure services relates largely to the hiring of additional staff in 2019 to decrease the reliance the town currently has on external consultants. This move will pay for itself as it allows us to spend more on consulting fees. It allows us to spend less on consulting fees and project management services on the various capital projects. The cost savings for this will be recognized through the capital budget, as this is where these external engineering costs would normally be incurred. The operations department is inclusive of utility infrastructure, waste management, community facilities, such as the pool and the arena, fleet resources, common services, and roads. The associated reduction in tax support for this area does not relate to a reduction in service. Rather, it relates to an increase in efficiencies. Planning and community development is increased due to an increased emphasis on economic development within Coaldale and additional resources that we're investing in the town's various community sources, such as the library, the museum, and special events such as Coaldale's 100th anniversary. Fire, police, and emergency management require slightly less tax support than it did in 2018. This is due to a lower than expected RCMP cost for 2019 compared to what was previously budgeted. The overall decrease again in this area does not relate to a decrease in services, but rather increased budgeting. An increased efficiency in budgeting. The fire and emergency management also includes an additional full-time RCMP member for Coaldale and a permanent director of emergency management. So this next slide here just breaks out the different revenues by category. To touch on property taxes, again, the majority of the increase is related to internal growth within our tax base through residential and non-residential. Followed again by a 4% increase in non-residential taxes, but also a 0% increase in municipal taxes for the residential aspect for 2019 and 2020. In the Budget Finance Committee meetings with Council, it was determined that if an annual recreation levy of $10 per month for all residential properties was to be added to the tax bill, a 0% tax increase for these properties for both 2019 and 2020 would follow suit. The purpose of this was to allow residents time to adjust their budgets if there is an addition to a new rec levy. Touch on a few other aspects of the revenue here. Sale of the increase in utility fees relates to a 3% increase in rates as previously approved by council, and the remaining increase relates to increased growth within the additional usage required for the town properties and the additional growth from new residential and non-residential properties. Partnerships, user fees, and other. The majority of this increase is due to local partnerships. These partnerships that the town is investing in will better allow us to manage our local assets while at the same time maintaining a strong level of services to the residents of Coaldale and the surrounding region. In combination with the fire hall expansion, the town has additional capacity to provide increased rental options and revenue opportunities within the town's diverse range of facilities, such as the hub. With the new fire hall expansion, the town no longer requires the hub facility for municipal purposes, and as a result, it adds value as a space that can be rented out to the public. Government transfers, so government grants. These include various areas such as the policing grant for the RCMP, various library grants, economic development grants, and family, community, and support services grants. You see there funding from reserves. So the funding from reserves relates to funds that are used from the town's savings account to support operating projects that are not funded through specific tax support. These operating projects often include one-time projects or non-recurring events. Just to touch back there on one item, the increase in franchise fees relates to an increase in usage. This is due to expanded customer base within Coaldale from new homes and new businesses. This is not due to an increase in the franchise fee rate itself. So the rate is not increasing, just the expected usage from new development. Expenses by category. The major increase in expenses is due to the transfer of reserves. The reserves transfer is up due to additional land sales budgeted. All the land sales are being moved to reserves, which means the land sales we are budgeting are not funding operations. They're going straight into the savings account of the town for future investing and opportunities down the road. Contracted and general services. This includes costs for repairs and maintenance, police, consulting, and contracted services, such as audit, legal fees, communications, insurance, education, and training. These expenses are budgeted on a conservative basis to ensure that the budget is sufficient to cover the related costs, including potential unexpected increases due to potential variable costs. Some of these costs are based on agreements, while others are based on historical usage. The transfer to reserves, again, are transfers from operations to the town's, in theory, savings account that will be used to fund future projects. As you can see there, the transfer to reserves for 2019 increases and then decreases the next 2 years. The reason for this is due to land sale projections and the recreation levy. As you can see on the top line here, with the capital budget we are proposing, we are still increasing our annual contributions to reserves, and this is not decreasing from the operations. So we're still have this capital budget, and it is not being funded through a reduction in transfer to reserves. A couple of the new initiatives in the operating budget. $200,000 for the sewer relining program. The installation of 27 new street lights to fix the dark spots within the town for $298,000. Development of various master plans and municipal plans, as well as a review of the offsite levy bylaw for $200,000. These plans are required to address the expanding boundaries of Coaldale through land annexation and growth through new commercial and residential units. As previously talked about in this meeting, the reconstruction of the alleys, 15 alleys for $150,000 spread out over 2 years, so $75,000 a year. And water valve replacement program, $60,000 per year for the next 3 years. 2019 is the 100th anniversary of the town of Coaldale, which $50,000 has been set aside for. A municipal census for $25,000. As previously mentioned, additional RCMP member in 2019 for $175,000. An annual partnership with the Gem of the West Museum for $30,000. An allocation of resources to step in and to ensure the continuation of the handy-ride service in Coaldale, and $42,000 invested in a library for service hour enhancements. This part concludes the operating budget. Just to highlight it again, it does include a $10 per month rec levy, a 0% municipal tax increase for residential for the next 2 years, and a 4% increase in non-residential in 2019. I'll move to council if there's it for further discussion and questions.
On behalf of council, I want to really commend you for all the work that you've done. You transitioned into this new role in a relatively brief period of time, and your explanation today, you really illuminated the fact that you've been able to find some efficiencies within the budgeting process, and throughout the budget deliberations, you've added a lot of clarity to our discussions and that. So on behalf of council, I'd like to extend to you and corporate services and all the cast of others that helped with all this our gratitude for a job well done. And with that, I'll open the floor to council if there's any questions. Okay, we're getting off easy on that. That's what happens when you do such a great job. So then you're gonna go through the capital budget, and at this point in time, as previously declared, Councillor Simpson will recuse herself during the first part of the discussion, even though this matter has already been approved in a previous format. Just for clarity and transparency, she's going to recuse herself. Okay, Kellen, you want to introduce?
Yes, please. On behalf of administration, I'm pleased to introduce the capital segment of the 2019 to 2021 capital plan. Before I get into the many of the projects, I just want to say at a high level that I really appreciate the hard work of staff and council. I know council doesn't get paid by the hour, and there's a lot of time that's gone into the creation of this plan, starting with this council strategic plan of that started in November 2017. So this is the fruits of over a year of labor, and as a result of the past number of years, we've been accumulating a lot of MSI capital dollars that have been unexpended. Our reserves have grown, and we've done quite well in the land sale in our industrial park end of things. So the timing to build stuff, it's really good, and it's going to be really fun. So I just wanted to start with those opening comments. You'll see in the package here, it's an outward reflection of a lot of the council strategic planning framework that was been in the makings for over a year.
Thank you, Kellen. And can I just interject before? I just want to applaud my colleagues on town council for their vision and confidence in Coaldale's future to consider today's capital plan. This document is a bold statement on council's vision for Coaldale. Today is the culmination of the policies and decisions of not only the current council, but many of the previous councils. Over time, we have been able to strategically assemble professional and capable staff, land, and financial resources to make this game-changing capital plan a reality, should council so choose. I believe that today's document puts Coaldale's future squarely in our hands and gives our residents and the business community a balanced approach to recreation, economic development, and core infrastructure. So without further ado, we'll move forward.
No pressure. Okay, on behalf of our fire chief, he is away today, so I'll be pinch hitting for him and stealing his thunder. As stated previously, this has been previously approved by council at a previous meeting, but I'm simply augmenting the rest of the capital budget to show all the pieces to the puzzle. So this follows under the Emergency Services Public Safety umbrella, and the first project being the Fire Hall renovation and expansion project. We'll get into the project description first. There's three primary elements to the project. The first involves the construction of new garage bays to the east of the existing hall at about 8,400 square feet. And this provides or enhances parking spaces for all town county equipment, ventilation and filtration of hydrocarbons from the garage equipment area, sufficient infrastructure for industrial washing of bunker gear, oversized garage bay doors to accommodate new incoming apparatus, such as the elevated master stream, storage gear for bunker equipment, and training props as part of the first one. The second element is renovation of the existing space, the existing fire hall, that being the bays as well as the meeting area at 6,600 square feet. And this will be converted into an area that has office space for the fire chief, deputy fire chiefs, as well as the community peace officers. That'll be the primary entryway for those requiring peace officer assistance. You'll have a multi-purpose training and meeting room, refurbished kitchen, and storage/sleeping quarters that will be leased out to partner organizations. The third element is the 2-story breezeway at about 1,600 square feet per story that'll integrate the existing fire hall structure with the newly constructed bays to the east. The first floor will serve as the main entrance to the building, as well as the location of the building's washrooms and mechanical electrical facility. The second floor will serve as the town's new emergency operations center, as well as the training facility for the dual credit high school and post-secondary fire academy that the Coaldale and District Emergency Services Department will be teaching on behalf of and in conjunction with Palliser Regional Schools and Kate Andrews High School in Coaldale. The project is $3,915,000. Given the need to provide ongoing service, a phased construction process will occur. The goal is that the new garage bays to the east will be constructed first, along with the 2-story vestibule. Once that's complete, then the personnel will move over to the new bays, at which point the renovation will take place for the existing space. To make sure that we stagger that, the key project stakeholders are Lethbridge County, Palliser Regional Schools, Alberta Health Services, and the Coaldale Volunteer Firefighter Association. The funding sources are as follows. The Fire Hall Building Reserve, which is jointly funded by the town and county, will be $843,000. MSI Capital of $659,000. And then a debenture over 30 years, $2.415 million, which will create an annual payment of $130,750, and that will be serviced with no additional impact to the town's operating budget as follows. $65,000 a year from the joint town-county building reserve, which is in the existing budget, $35,000 a year from other stakeholders for use of the living quarters, training rooms, and garage bays, and then $30,750 a year generated by renting out the existing EOC at the hub, as well as the residual space to longer-term tenants. This is because a newly constructed EOC will be on the second floor of this building. Project leads, Andrea Kester, our Director of Infrastructure and Engineering, and Kevin McEwen, our Fire Chief. Okay, the second project that's under the public... Oh, yes. See, that's why I didn't trust myself. Any questions on that?
Any questions or comments on the fire department part? I just wanted to comment that we had the pleasure of attending the awards banquet on this past Saturday night, and you know, our partnership with the county of Lethbridge is really bearing fruit on our ability to go forward with these kinds of things. So I'm really pleased, and I believe that, you know, the atmosphere in the room on Saturday night echoed the fact that the members are very supportive of the endeavors of the partnership of council and the both councils and what the future of there. I think they're just ecstatic about 2019. So, all right, go ahead.
Okay. The Alberta First Responders Radio Communication System, also known as AFRAX, is a province-wide movement to align the radio systems used by first responders, such as police, fire, and ambulance, for the purpose of improving safety and response times through improved coordination of communications. One of the chief goals of this program is to improve interagency and intermunicipal communication, which is crucial for managing large-scale events. The legacy VHF radio system currently used by the Coaldale and District Emergency Services Department does not function at times well outside of town limits. Frequently, instances are encountered within Lethbridge County, a primary response area of the Coaldale and District Emergency Services Department, where the Public Safety Communications Center is unable to be reached by radio. If the town's firefighters require assistance but are unable to communicate with dispatch, a potentially unsafe working environment is created. The need to migrate to AFRAX becomes important as many other departments within southern Alberta have already or are currently transitioning to AFRAX, some of which the town responds with on a frequent basis, including AHS EMS, Lethbridge Fire, Barons, Nobleford, Blood Tribe, Tabor, and the Municipal District of Willow Creek. In order to maintain the ability to collaborate with neighboring fire departments and provincial agencies, it is important that the town of Coaldale begin taking efforts to follow suit. The total estimated project cost for this transition is $140,000. We currently have $70,000 set aside, and the goal for 2019 is for administration to obtain an additional $70,000 from available grants and stakeholders to cover the difference. And that concludes my update on the AFRAX radios. If there's any easy questions on that, I'd be happy to take them.
Seeing none, we can move to the next segment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. I'll briefly touch on a couple of the projects, the capital projects that are planned for or are proposed to be planned for the next 3 years. So recreation project number 1, joint high school and multi-use recreational facility. As council and the broader community is aware, Palliser School Division has put in a lot of thought and time as to how to address the some of the school capacity issues that Coaldale has experienced historically. And they are of the mindset that a new high school in Coaldale that would serve grades 7 to 12 would be the most beneficial for our town and our region. In order to build on the strength of that opportunity, the proposal from the town is to jointly construct a multi-use recreational facility side by side with that school. So if the high school were to be approved, that would of course be at the funding of the province, and the multi-use recreational facility, as Kyle's already touched on, would be funded by the town through a recreational levy, which we'll discuss a little bit more later on. The multi-use recreational facility in general would include multi-sport surfaces that could accommodate numerous sports for competitive purposes, and even a broader range of sports for non-competitive purposes, dryland training and off-season training, for example. There would be an 8-lane upper track to service summer, winter, fall, and spring activities indoors when the weather isn't cooperating, and the track would be built to be able to accommodate competitive events as well. There would be additional space for other facilities within the broader multi-use recreational facility. And outside of the facility, there would be a brand new regulation-sized football field, which would also be able to accommodate other field sports such as soccer, lacrosse, and rugby. So again, just touching on the budget aspect, the project budget for the recreational facility is set at $10 million currently, and infrastructure upgrades to serve that facility and in part to ensure that the school site is also able to be served properly would be an additional $5 million. The town has dedicated 20 acres of land along the northwest wetlands at a value of approximately $1.5 million, as well as $15 million in cash. So the $10 million for the construction of the rec facility and $5 million for the upgrades. So in terms of value scoping, a multi-day value management exercise that discussed various options to address the congestion in the school programming and the school facilities we currently have facing public schools in Coaldale was undertaken, and a request for provincial funding for a new high school in Coaldale will be submitted to the province as part of the Palliser School Division's 2019 budget. In terms of the location, as already indicated, the 20-acre piece of land that's been dedicated by the town is directly west of the constructed wetlands that make up the Phase 2A primary catchment area for the Malloy Drainage Project. So in addition to the 20 acres of land that's been dedicated, intersectional upgrades and signalization of Highway 3 and 30th Street would also take place. And I should note that we'd be working closely with Alberta Transportation to ensure that that signalization and full upgrading of the intersection would be operational before the rec facility or school were to be opened and operational. In addition to that, road and servicing extensions would be completed on 18th and 16th Avenue to make sure that the site is fully accessible by vehicles and pedestrians and cyclists and other active modes users. In terms of specifics for the funding model that would be or that is proposed at this time for the rec complex, a $10 million debenture over 25 years at a rate of 3.5% interest is about $604,000 in annual debt servicing. As Kyle's already indicated, a fair and pragmatic way of servicing this debt would be to collect a $10 per month per household rec levy for a total of $120 per household per year. So again, just to elaborate a little bit further on some of the upgrades for the transportation network that would be required to fully and safely service this school and recreational facility. Intersectional upgrades would be required at Highway 3 and 30th Street. We've already covered some of the details in that regard. And additionally, road widening and pathways along 30th Street, 18th Avenue, and 16th Avenue would be completed at an estimated cost of $2 million. The extension of sanitary and water lines into the site for the future school and multi-use recreational facility would also be completed at an estimated cost of $500,000. In terms of outreach to ensure that the recreational facility is as comprehensively and thoughtfully designed as possible, a four-part strategy for ensuring the community and user groups have a voice in how the space is designed has been proposed. Strategy 1 is an online survey. Strategy 2 and 3 would be focused discussions with interested members of the community and specifically user groups. And strategy 4 would be tours of similar facilities to ensure that some of the innovations that have already been developed through other similar partnerships can be realized and built upon and enhanced for our facility that would hopefully be built with the school division. My apologies. If council wishes, there is a brief video that's been prepared that provides a little bit more detail on the proposed multi-use rec facility and the school site.
Nope. Yeah, that one, Butch. Nope. Oh.
What can we do in town of Coaldale collectively to make it more enticing for families, make it more enticing for children and young adults to want to stay there, settle there, and make it their home? How do we actually see the community developing over the next 10, 15, 20 years? What facilities do we need? Where do we need them? And how does the school fit into all that?
We did find that St. Andrews is one of the oldest schools in our division, and the cost to run this school is quite expensive because of the aging infrastructure.
St. Andrews was a great school. Like I said, I went there. But my parents also went there too. So it's time.
I did go to high school at St. Andrews. It is getting older, so it would be nice to have something a little bit more modern and up to date, as well as a rec center, which is something the town needs.
Our kids are the future of our community, and we want the best opportunities for education that we can.
Well, with having the new high school and the rec complex together, it benefits Coaldale in so many different ways.
One of our goals in terms of our school community is we want to celebrate our students. We want to celebrate their accomplishments, and to do so we need gathering spaces. And those gathering spaces translate to the greater community as well.
This is a big change for us. A new rec center and a new high school for our community would be a huge development. Kids want to continue playing football, especially in the community that they grew up in, and having an opportunity with a football stadium to further carry on their aspirations in playing football is great for them.
I'm passionate about our schools and our kids in Coaldale, and knowing that our kids are going to have more of an opportunity to just stay here and enjoy the town and have some other options. And even for us now as adults, you know, being able to go to a rec center with some other options instead of having to go to Lethbridge is definitely something that we would be looking forward to.
As a way to demonstrate their commitment to the project and their partnership with Palliser Regional Schools, the town of Coaldale has dedicated 20 acres of land next to the northwest wetlands, as well as $10 million to see a new multi-use recreational facility come to fruition. The desire is to see both the high school and recreational facility co-constructed side by side with the collaborative principle that more can be achieved together than apart.
Before I move on to the next item, I'm happy to take any questions that council may have at this time.
Questions on that? Councillor Holm?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick note on that then. So, don't want to put any cold water on this because it's really a very needed piece of facility, but I just want to have clarification that if at the 2019-2020 provincial budget this school doesn't get approved, I'm assuming then that we would be holding off on going and taking out any debenture on this, and that we would hold off until we got an updated cost of doing this project by ourselves, and also that we wouldn't be instituting any rec levy until such time as we knew exactly where this is going. Because we never know what Palliser School Division may do, so I just want to make sure we have clarification on that.
That's a really good, big question. From administration's standpoint, I think that would involve a kind of a rehuddle with council in terms of what to do. Right now, the current course has been charted with the key assumption with Palliser as a partner. If by some chance, funding becomes an issue at the provincial level, then we would have to look at re-examining the project, the timeline, not just for construction, but also the levy. Or we can decide alternatively to proceed on our own with a bit of a revised project scope. So that would be, from my perspective, what I'd offer up in response.
Thank you. So just to follow up then, I certainly would support moving forward with this capital budget with this piece in it, and just making sure that we follow up if something happens from the school board side.
Okay, Spencer?
Thank you. So the next project that I'd like to discuss is a proposed trail expansion and a connectivity upgrade for the pathways network in and throughout Coaldale. Recognizing that vehicles are the primary means of transportation and will likely continue to be for some time, there's been a focus on active ways of getting around town for recreation and for functional needs as well over the recent past. Further to that, there's a proposed three-part expansion to the town's existing pathways network. It's a little bit dim on the screen, but ultimately what that looks like is an expansion to the town's core pathways infrastructure outlined in red, which would add a significant amount of pathway to the core of the town heading east and west, and it would connect a lot of Coaldale via the already heavily used footpaths along the canal infrastructure that's on the south third of the town. Phase 2 would be in conjunction with or intended to serve enhanced connectivity further to the west, and then heading north across the highway and towards the constructed wetlands and the proposed multi-use rec facility and school site. And a separate project which would show pathways being introduced around the constructed wetlands will be discussed as well. So again, the three-part upgrades to the trails and pathways in town would include phase 1, which has been deemed the legacy pathway. And again, that's the red pathway that heads east-west along the majority of the width of town, and then out towards the new eastern boundary post-annexation. Phase 2, which is estimated at $500,000 and would take place in 2020, is again the light blue that would service through the Westgate area, west towards 30th Street, north across Highway 3, and then back towards the proposed school and recreational facility. Yes, so as shown on the far west side of the map on the screen, there's an orange line that indicates the general right-of-way location of the Link Regional Pathway. So that would tie into Phase 2 of the trail expansion proposal that we have before Council today. So that would service all recreational and tourist and very fit people running and walking and cycling all the way from Lethbridge that would be able to get right into the heart of the town. By way of our existing and expanded trails network. And then next we have, or sorry, I should pause and ask if there are any questions from council on the trails and pathway expansion.
On the pathway segment?
Thank you. So next we have a proposed partnership with the Coaldale Kinsmen to rejuvenate and enhance Eastview Park. Eastview Park's approximately 3 acres in size, and it's between 10th Street and 19B Avenue and 9th Street in Coaldale, on the east half of town. It's a relatively large park for being somewhat of a neighborhood style of park, and it appears to be underutilized given the amount of space and some of the existing infrastructure that's currently there. In discussions with Coaldale Kinsmen, $100,000 has been offered by that group, and the proposal would be to match that and look for grants as well to realize a full upgrade to that park that would include refurbished tennis and pickleball courts, refurbishing of the existing basketball courts that are there, the introduction of a children's parkour course. That's where they can do all kinds of running and jumping and tumbling and things that kids do, but in a more formal setting. And last but not least, an outdoor fitness circuit that would be likely very beneficial to adults in town, and namely seniors who wish to get out and be active when the weather cooperates. I should note that the park itself is a relatively short walk from the seniors lodge, and some of these outdoor fitness circuits are quite well used by seniors that do like to get a bit of extra exercise in their day. Are there any questions on the Eastview Park Partnership proposal? Thank you. And last but not least, on the recreation side, a 100th year celebration for the town is in order for 2019. And along with that, a commemorative pathway is planned that would go along the, currently we're looking to the southeast. This is a artistic rendering of the Phase 2A constructed wetlands for the Malloy Drainage Project, and the Centennial Pathway and Park would be a pathway that would run along the east side of the constructed wetlands on the southern area, and then all the way around the large catchment area of the park and loop back to that east side pathway. It would also include landscaping enhancements, park benches, doggy-doo stations, all that fun detail that would be included in the park. And the estimated costs would be $400,000 coming from land compensation received from the provincial government for the wetlands expansion project. And this would be tied into the trails and network expansion that's been discussed earlier on. And again, I'll take any questions that council may have.
Yeah, thank you, Worship, and thank you, Spencer. Just a quick suggestion. If in case the new high school is going to be located where it's being suggested, that you might want to make a connection as well via pathway to the new rec facility.
I believe the next section is Mr. Mills, so I'll step aside and let him take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, let me begin by saying that it's an honor and a privilege to present the economic development portion of the capital plan as presented. There's a lot of exciting opportunity here in the town of Coaldale, and we're very proud of the of the proposals we have to review today. Project 1 to be discussed is the Downtown Revitalization Project. What we're talking about here fundamentally is the replacement of three blocks of underground infrastructure on our downtown Main Street, as well as aesthetic and functional improvements to the streetscape, the roadways, pedestrian corridor, which would all be developed in consultation with our downtown business owners. Proposed budget for this project is $4.5 million, and I'll note that this includes a reasonable cash allowance for the built into the budget to accommodate those aesthetic improvements. Obviously, the specific design of those improvements is an important part of the consultation process. So we've made sure within this budget to include a reasonable amount of money to make sure that we can do aesthetic improvements that are really going to make this a first-class destination. I'll note it's not a sky is the limit type of proposal, but there is a reasonable amount of cash in there to do some exciting things. Current status of the project: the detailed engineering designing for the civil works, specifically the buried utilities and so on, is complete. The next steps on the project will involve direct consultation with downtown business owners, sort of a project kickoff meeting in order to involve them directly in the design input process. Beyond that, we'll be hosting a series of brainstorming workshops to help inform the vision of what our Main Street can become. Any questions from council on that particular project before we move along?
I'm really excited to see this part of the revitalization go forward. Over the number of terms I've been on council, it's been frustrating waiting for our federal government to roll out Build Canada type programs, and then find out that our projects don't quite qualify in that. Ideally, it's nice to see where we can leverage grant dollars for this, but I think it's high time that we take the bull by the horns and go with this project, because our downtown really does need this much needed upgrade. So I'm really excited about this.
All right. Item number 2, related, though separate item, is the project which is being described as Civic Square. The proposal here is the construction of a multi-use commercial building on Main Street, which would provide new commercial office space, as well as a community gathering place and additionally administrative office space for the town of Coaldale's operations. The proposal here is fundamentally that the first floor of a 2-story building be constructed to provide for commercial bays, either to be leased or purchased, as well as providing for community meeting rooms and a cafe that would serve as a community living room grand entry into the building. And along with the assistance of the Regional Economic Development Group, to which we're a part, South Grow, provide for some incubator offices that would be made available for rent. The idea behind incubator offices being that they help startup entrepreneurs get started, and that provide them an opportunity to do so in Coaldale, with the idea that once their businesses grow and expand, that they would look for the opportunity to remain in the community in which they'd begun. The second floor of the office, the proposal is the second floor of the building would provide a location for the new town office. In addition, the space adjacent to that, or located north of the existing public library, would be developed as a combination outdoor civic space as well as a parking lot during the day. So we provide for some additional parking capacity to access both this building as well as downtown and Main Street businesses, while at the same time designing it in such a way that it provides for an area where festivals and markets and other types of events can be held to attract that sort of positive atmosphere to our downtown as part of an assisting generating additional business and additional traffic. Project budget here, broken down, the concept being that approximately $3.5 million of an $8.6 million project would be associated with the construction of the town office portion of the project. $4.13 million would be devoted to the commercial and common area space, and approximately $1 million to the outside project, specifically the parking lot and civic space feature of the project. These budget assumes a full build out, so a complete move-in ready build out for the space. Obviously, with condominiumization, if sales are incurred, at say an earlier phase in the construction cost, then our costs associated would go down. So that this is based on a full build out of the entire space. Funding sources for the project: MSI capital, federal gas tax, town office reserves. Proceeds on the sale of existing capital assets, as well as the sale of those commercial condominium spaces. So again, just to highlight some of those benefits of this project, we really look at it as an opportunity to bring traffic to Coaldale's downtown. It's an opportunity for us to invest in ourselves in conjunction with the refurbishment of Main Street. We believe that there will be a market for this type of commercial development, and represents an exciting opportunity for the town. This is going to add approximately 16,000 square feet of commercial retail space to the downtown core when you factor in the existing assets as well as the new build. And it really provides for a forum type space where ideas can meet, where the community can come together, where we can continue to grow and bring people together as a community as we welcome new folks to the town on a regular basis. Also, obviously, great benefit was the creation of property tax revenue for the community. That goes without saying, as well as increasing our ability to host meetings and to host other types of events within our downtown core. Before we move on, does council have any questions with respect to the Civic Square space?
Well, again, I guess, sorry to be the only one speaking, but I think this is also another exciting initiative. We recently had a guest in town, Roger Brooks, and some of the people in the gallery were there, and some of the other business community was there, and I think it really speaks to what we need to do with downtown, spark the revitalization of the downtown and incentivize activity, living space, and a reason to come downtown before, after, and during work would be fundamental to our success of revitalizing downtown. So I'm really excited about this segment as well.
Okay, project number 3 is the construction and reconstruction of an industrial ring road with utilizing 8th Street North as an entry point, as an upgraded entry point into the industrial area. This would connect with 11th Avenue and Range Road 203, creating, as I mentioned, what fundamentally amounts to an industrial ring road around the Coaldale Industrial Park, providing our industrial traffic and our heavy traffic with an opportunity to enter and exit from the industrial park along, fully designed pathways, and to avoid sending that type of traffic into areas where it may not be suitable. It's an important component to our larger industrial expansion, our continued industrial expansion, as the town moves forward in its continued sale of industrial lots. Project budget here is $4 million. This includes $881,000 from the STIP grant, as well as revenue from lot sales in the Northeast Industrial Park.
Any comments, Cam, on that segment? I think, again, this is an important segment as well, because what we're looking at today in this capital plan and the operating budget, the backbone of it, I think, is formulated on the fact that we've been able to be active in commercializing our industrial park over the past number of years. Without the ability to diversify our tax base and grow our economy in the industrial park, a great part of this capital plan that we envision wouldn't be possible, in my opinion.
Great. The last project that I'll speak to council about relates to the concept of LED signage within town. I guess I'd begin by saying that LED signs as a general use are something that is typically a fairly divisive issue. Some some will be fully supportive of LED signage, and others find them would prefer not to see any. We've had some discussions about LED signage within the community, and we've recognized that there might be a potential benefit to the town having access to some signage in a strategic area in order to communicate some critical town messaging. So LED signage represents an opportunity with that respect. If there were one type of sign located somewhere in town to provide the town with that opportunity. At the same time, we've recognized that administratively or operationally, the town doesn't necessarily have the capacity to manage and operate this type of infrastructure. We don't have expertise in sign maintenance. We don't have expertise in the selling of advertising space. And it is not forecast that the town would require, if there were an LED sign available in town, it wouldn't be required on a sort of a 24/7 messaging basis for the town's communications. Only some portion of messaging space would be available or would be necessary from our perspective, with the understanding that during an emergency situation, any type of proposal we see would need to allow for the town to sort of take over the operation of the sign to make sure that, you know, important messaging is delivered in an accurate and timely way. So what we're proposing at this time is simply this: provide for an opportunity for members of the private sector to bring forward proposals to administration within a framework that would be within a defined framework as discussed, where it would provide for a certain amount of messaging and a certain and the ability for the town to occupy the time in an emergency space, utilizing town-owned land. With an opportunity for the town potentially to generate revenues from leasing the space, and to include in those options the opportunity for those companies to provide for other services or other digital advertising services potentially that the town could take advantage of. Fundamentally, what we're recognizing here is that we are not the experts in dictating exactly what this should look like. Let's put it out to the business community and see what their proposals look like, and if there's an attractive proposal that comes forward, we can consider it further.
Thank you, Your Worship. Speaking in favor of this LED sign proposal, I think this is great timing, being that this has been researched over the past 10 years, and the logistics back then were much more restrictive than today, and I'm pleased that we can move forward with this idea.
Right.
And just a quick further question regarding the federal gas tax from the previous slides. It seems like this is more of a new initiative, and I'm pleased that we're tapping into it. I'm just curious to know whether that tax is what would be directed to us, or is this an additional request that we normally would have to apply for?
I don't have any particular expertise on the matter. I'll pass that along to Kaylin.
I can speak on it. The federal gas tax is an annual grant from the federal government based on town population. It's not something new. It's been around for quite a long time, and we usually get around $400,000 to $500,000 a year in that grant, and that's ongoing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Cam. You're very welcome. Next up deck is Andrea.
Thank you, Your Worship, and members of council. I'm going to talk to you today about some of our core infrastructure. So if you can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So our first project will be upgrades to our wastewater facility. As you know, we've talked about it before, but the town has existing aerated lagoons that goes to the Old Man River right now. As part of our approval with Alberta Environment and Parks, we are required to upgrade this facility to meet the current provincial regulations. So there are two ways to go about this. We can first off just upgrade the lagoons, or we could do a joint wastewater treatment plant with Lethbridge County. So if we upgrade the lagoons, it will give capacity for the town for a 25-year build out, but it doesn't provide any capacity for outside of the town or any economic development outside of town. So in that regard, having wastewater treatment plant would be an asset to development in this area. So because of that, the town in Lethbridge County, we've partnered to obtain funds from the provincial and federal government for a joint wastewater treatment facility. So the funding model for the lagoon upgrades, we have 1.5 million in our wastewater reserve. Typically on a project like this, you'd get about 33% of your project costs paid for from a WWOA grant. So that's 3.12 million. We would need a debenture of 4.88 million for a total cost of 9.5. The funding model for the mechanical treatment plant, I don't have it here because it's so dependent on federal and provincial grants. And right now, the province and the federal government are in discussions on how these grants are going to roll out and how much each level of government will be required to fund on that. So if we do get the grants, then I'd be able to give you more information on that. So the second project that I'll talk about today is wastewater lift station upgrades. So this is, we only have one lift station in town. Anytime we have large rainfall events, we always struggle with not having capacity in our pumps to be able to move the water or the sewage into our lagoons. So the first thing we want to do there is to add in an additional pump to be able to handle these extra flows. And then the second part would be installing additional screening compactor. Right now, we take out all the big items from the sewage and it goes into a bin, but that bin has to be dragged up through the top of it manually. So it's not the safest way to do it, and B, it's very heavy because we leave a lot of water in there too. So we're taking out a lot more than we need to and disposing of a lot more than we need to. So by putting in this screening compactor and conveyor, it will take all the water out and we'll just be getting the solids out, which will be better for the bill of what we're sending to the dump, and will just be a far safer way for our operations staff to do this. So the project budget for this is 650,000, and it was approved in the 2018 budget. I'm just bringing it forward to you now, as Kaylin mentioned earlier, to give you the full picture.
This would also be necessary regardless of what we do with the previous segment that you introduced. Is that correct?
Oh, thank you for that question, Mayor Kim. Absolutely. We are doing the design so that whether it was lagoons or wastewater treatment plant, what we're doing here would be useful in either scenario moving forward. So our third project is Phase 2B of the Malloy Drain Implementation Project. So currently we get a lot of flow in a rainfall or wet weather event from the county that comes into the south part of Coaldale. So this project is to trap that water in a pond that we would build south of town. Be very similar style to the 2A project that we're currently finishing on the west side of town, and we would send the water from that pond into our decommissioned reservoirs. We're sitting there with about 500,000 cubes of free storage, so we want to take that storage and use it for stormwater, and then have that level of protection on the south side of town that we don't currently have. The project cost for this is 3.1 million. In September of this year, we applied for a grant from the Alberta Community Resilience Program. So we've asked for 2.8 million. As part of the grant, the town of Coaldale would be responsible for 100,000, and Esmeralda and Lethbridge County would also be responsible for 100,000. So we should hear the results typically in the spring, so spring of 2019, we should hear if we've received this grant.
On that? Thank you, Andrea.
So as has been discussed earlier, there's 5 major master plans that we're hoping to complete. The Infrastructure Master Plan, Transportation Master Plan, the Municipal Development Plan, the Stormwater Master Plan, and to complete a review of our offsite levies bylaw.
The offsite levies bylaw, is that going to require a lot of time and work to come up with a supplemental proposal?
Through the chair to Councillor Chapman, it will take quite a bit of work, truthfully. We'll have to RFP out the process itself. And then once we hire a consultant, there will be a lot of public engagement. When we do offsite levy reviews, there's typically a lot of input from the construction community. They have a lot to say. So it's a very open book way of explaining where we've come and why we're getting there. And then there's a little bit more buy-in typically from the construction community. No one's ever really happy that the offsite levies are raised, but I think by the end of it, they understand why we're raising them and where those numbers are coming from. So I guess before I go, I just wanted to say that the town and staff, we really recognize that roadwork and underground infrastructure is really one of our central pillars of our capital asset management. And I just wanted that to be very clear. And because of that, we have engaged consultants to work on the infrastructure master plan and transportation master plan, as you know. And once those plans are completed, then we can really prioritize projects and make sure that when I come back to you fall of 2019 with projects, that the projects that I come to you will have merit and there will be very good reasons for why one project is picked over another. And that's it for me.
Hey.
If there's any questions.
Any questions or comments? Too bad you don't get to present on the real sizzle projects that others get to.
Yeah,
go
exactly. That's okay. I can sit in the background for those. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Here to talk about the operations department. The 2 pictures you see on there are the 2 big items, one of which we've already spoke about, which is the alley refurbishment through the next 2 years, and the one on the right is the plow truck. Oh, I guess, sorry. Oh, I jumped one too far. Oh, you want to back it up?
Yeah, I got it.
Sorry about that. So we've got 2 pages here with several different projects on them. We can go line by line, or if we just do the whole page and then any questions on those projects, and then we'll go to the next page. So the first item is our snowplow dump truck wet application sander. It's currently to replace 3 aging pieces of equipment that we have now. It will add the ability to apply wet to our sand and salt so that we can actually move forward in our snow fighting abilities from just the current dry application that we have. The plow is as I said, going to replace one of the other pieces of equipment here, and going forward with the annexed areas, the expansion out will be a critical piece of infrastructure or equipment going forward. Number 2 is replacement of 4 pickup trucks. So one is a new pickup truck for staff at the operations office, and then 3 are replacements of aged fleet vehicles that are at the end of their life. So a heavy-duty multi-tool scanner is for our mechanics, so that we have the ability to scan our heavy equipment as well as just our light equipment. Keeps more of our repairs in-house. The dump trailer is for a lot of small projects that we do, traveling and carrying dirt and gravel across town. It's a smaller scale than getting a tandem out for big loads like that. And the last one is the kin picnic shelter. Its cedar shakes on the roof have got to the end of their life, and it's to replace that roof with a new roof. Oh, any questions on that first page?
Questions, comments?
No? Okay. So on the second page, we start off with the alarm panel at the library. We are currently replacing the alarm panel at the arena right now, and the next one to be replaced will be the one at the library. Alley rehabilitation we've already spoke about, but we do have a list of the top 15 in most need of work alleys. So this will, over the next 2 years, be used to rebuild some of those, or most of those. Project 8 is the water distribution plant, just to replace the pumps one a year and continually until we've upgraded our pumps at the water plant. It's really just a pumping station now, but all the plant pumps are original, and it's time to start replacing those. And Project 9 has already been approved previously. We're just going to continue on with replacing hydrants this year and going forward, just to replace our infrastructure and keep replacing it. Any questions on those?
Anything for Terry?
Oh.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
Okay. Call Spencer Croyle to the stand.
Well, thankfully, I'm not here for something that requires that. Well, thank you again, Mr. Mayor and members of council. I'm going to now focus on a couple of projects regarding parks and beautification for Coaldale. And before I get into the meat of Project 1, I'll just mention that one of the biggest fears of a planner is that you do all this work on a document and it just sits there and collects dust. So Project 1 is basically focused on avoiding that entirely. We have the Gateways and Corridors strategy that was approved by council earlier this fall. And as a way to avoid the dust collection on that document, we've proposed a $500,000 budget for a corridors-specific focus on main entry signage and upgrades to that area. We've already initiated one of those projects, which was the revitalization of McCain Park. That's currently in progress, and Cam has already touched on the LED component that's been discussed earlier. So that total would, the total cost for that type of work is set at $500,000 currently, and that would come from general reserve. That would help to achieve certain goals, such as ensuring our entrance signage is in keeping with all of the other excellent projects that have been brought forth this afternoon, to make sure that we're a step above other communities our size, and make sure that we're putting our best foot forward in terms of introducing folks to our town as they come through and visit Coaldale. Project 2 is highly functional in nature. It's the installation of post and chain fencing along the west boundary of the field located at Kate Andrews High School in between 2204 and 2208 24th Street, and 2120 and 2122 25th Street. Both of those projects are intended to provide a little bit more of a formal boundary between green spaces and alleyways to avoid the wear and tear on green spaces when wide turns are taken that impact alleyways, and specifically in the case of Kate Andrews, as wonderful as it is to stay warm and cozy in your vehicle when your kids are playing sports, it's not so great for the green spaces that we have to keep up. So that would hope to avoid some of those minor issues that have been occurring for some time. Are there any questions on either of those two projects? Okay, so last but not least, I'll finish with a relatively small budget item project, and that is a proposed storage shed at the Coaldale Arena for the Community Services Department, totaling $13,000. Historically, there's been some space available for float decorations and other community event related materials that are stored at the arena. Up until recently, that hasn't been a major concern, but recognizing that there is more and more space required by the user groups at the arena, this would help to alleviate some of the space issues that community services is now feeling in turn. I am of the opinion that we've tried to accommodate the space needs of the user groups at the arena as much as possible. And now we need space that's dry and safe and lockable and rodent-free for some of the materials we use for excellent events like our Night of Lights that we just had last week. And that's the reason for that proposal. So if there are any questions on that, I'm happy to address them.
Mr. Dispenser? Guess you're off the hook, Spencer. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Kyle?
Yeah. Excuse me. So I'll just summarize the capital budget we went over through. The numbers on the screen. It is over $52 million. The funding source that you have on the screen, it's a very balanced funding source. You think of it, it's a third grants and levies, a third debt, and a third cash. We're not overtaxing one funding source over the other. It's very balanced between the two. And again, just to highlight, $52,247,314. So the $52 million, how is that being allocated here? 43% towards buildings, 27% towards utilities infrastructure, and 28% towards transportation. Those are the main items there. As a result of the budget, there is additional borrowing required to fund this. As you can see, the 2017 and 2018 debt levels are in green there, and the borrowing capacity is in blue. You can see that the debt level compared to borrowing has been not utilized very much in the past. And even with the additional debentures and debt taken out over this capital budget, we still are projecting roughly $10 million under our debt level or borrowing capacity for 2021. Just a comparison, some municipalities have come up with a mandate saying we are, maxing out our debt level every year. This just shows that we're able to fund these without fully maximizing our available debt. Finally, here is the capital budget line by line for all the items we went over. Again, $52,247,314. I'll just leave that up there for a sec. That lists all the projects and the associated cost, going from buildings to transportation, utilities, parks, equipment, and vehicles. So that is the conclusion of the capital budget presentation. I will turn that back to Mr. Mayor and Council for any further questions.
Okay, Kellen, you had your hand up there.
I was trying to think of a really hard question here for our Director of Corporate Services. Can you remind us, Kyle, how much the debt will decrease by each year as a result of the debt payments that we make for each project?
Roughly around $550,000 we anticipate in the principal.
And I'll echo some of my same sentiments as I did earlier, only to maybe a wider cast of renowns. I know that administration worked very, very hard in compiling this capital budget and trying to loop in all the vision and strategy that the council has discussed over the years, and it's truly a fine piece of work by those involved with the. I think this is the first year that we've had really comprehensive capital budget that is cookbook bound kind of thing that you could almost put it in the bookstore and get good money by selling it, kind of thing. It's very professionally done, and I know it went through a lot of iterations, and it took a lot of time and dedication to get it done. And on behalf of a grateful council, thank you very much for all the work.
Thank you, Worship. I'd just like to reiterate what the mayor said. I'd like to thank all the town staff for all their hard work in this. And I like the transparency in this budget. I know the number is big, the $52 million, but it also does reflect, even though there'll be a tax levy for recreation, people know where their money's going. And it also gives us a 0 and 0 for the next 2 years, which is something we need to be very proud of. And I really want to thank you guys for that clear transparency and how you were able to bring this budget to light, the operations and the capital. Thank you.
Simply want to echo again both Councillor Avery's comments and the mayor's comments. I know that this has been a real time for change in our community, and as a growing community, I appreciate all the work you've done to express growth in a proper and a logical manner. And we do have new people coming to Coaldale, and so we need to provide infrastructure and the facilities that really encourage that that community that is a great place to live, work, and play.
And I just want to pay respect to the fact that today's presentation highlighted quite a lot of the major events and expenditures. There is within the capital plan some discussion on how council wants not to lose sight of the community's thoughts around indoor swimming and the second sheet of ice, and that those weren't really part of the formal presentation today because there's no necessarily capital dollars assigned to them at this point in time, but the capital budget does speak to a process of bringing that discussion back into the council's radar and that. So it's not lost, and so for any of the people in the viewing audience that were losing their breath about the net sheet of ice or the indoor pool, stay tuned, and we didn't forget about those kind of elements. And like any other good read, there's things that you can only appreciate by delving into the fulsome document anyway. So, but it's a very comprehensive document, and it's again very, very well done. Are there any questions or thoughts? Kellen, you want to say anything? You got your finger on the trigger there.
No, the safety was on, but thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to thank my staff. In previous years' budget, both the operating and the capital would spill into February, March, sometimes April, and what that does, that's the end of the first quarter of the year, and you're just getting budget approved, so you're having to get 4 quarters of work done into 3 quarters. This is the first time since I've been here where the budget has been presented to council at this juncture in the year, so that starting January 1st, new year, things can go out to tender, which is good for pricing, and that keeps us on schedule for our departmental business plans. And had it not been for all of the unpaid overtime worked by the management team over last several weeks and weekends, we would have been spilling into 2019 like years past. And because they gave up a lot of their free time, we were able to get this to council at this point in the year. So I really appreciate all the hard work done by the management team in preparing this so that we could get it to council's attention at this stage in 2018.
Great, so back to matter at hand, we have item 7.2, operating budget. What's council's wishes with regard to that? Councillor Holm?
Make the motion that we approve the operating budget for 2019 to 2021.
Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. And with respect to item 7.3, Councillor Lloyd? Councillor Lloyd, you have your motion. Councillor Simpson?
So I just can't vote on the fire hall portion of it, so can we make that 2 motions, or do you want to just me to abstain from this vote completely?
Okay, we can divide the motion. So your motion, Councillor Lloyd, the permissible would be to approve the capital budget with the exclusion of the fire hall project at this time. Okay, and then we'll call the question. All in favor? And Councillor Simpson can vote on that one. And then Councillor Lloyd, did you want to?
You'll have to recuse now.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Just if we could note the time, please, Lena.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, Councillor Chapman.
And I can make, if you like, I can make the motion to approve the additional component to the capital budget for the fire hall.
Okay. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. And okay, and then we'll rescue Brianne from the kitchen. Okay, and Councillor Simpson resumed attendance. Thank you very much. We have correspondence 10.1, the Green Acres letter that was sent out for your information. Councillor Holm. Okay, thank you. Thank you to the ghostwriter that helped on that. Okay, okay, a question by Councillor Chapman.
Thank you. Just as a quick informative, attended the tea at the Sunny South Lodge on the weekend, and it was informed to the residents of the Sunny South Lodge that the Coaldale Pharmacy would no longer be participating in any donations to the Sunny South Lodge as of effective possibly right away.
I'll call the question. All in favor of the receive for information motion? Okay. And then we have information items 11.1, 2, 3, and 4. Any particular one of those that strikes your fancy? Councillor Holm? Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, and then we have a motion to go into a closed meeting by Councillor Pauls. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you.